Good morning again. I'll ask you all to take your seats. We're going to kick off the next bit of programming here. So, I am thrilled to introduce Tanya Clayhouse. Tanya is the CEO of Clayhouse Consulting and chair of the NBA's Civil Rights Law Section. Tanya has a dignified career as a civil rights, racial justice, and education policy strategist. Ms. House has served as a legislative staff and counsel in the U.S. Senate and the House. We're delighted to have Tanya lead a discussion on the critical role of women in improving civic health in America. With three women who head up leading nonprofits working to increase equity and ensure representation in the United States. We'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this critical conversation. Please welcome all of our panelists to the stage.
Don't be shy. All right, so I have two microphones. I'm not sure what, okay, I'm gonna just, should I use that one? I can have a seat, I don't have to be up here, good. We're all good. All righty then. So, is it? Good morning.
Good morning.
No, I need y'all to wake up, because I need to wake up. All right, good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so once again, I'm Tanya Clayhouse. It is a pleasure to see all of you all here today. We're here to kind of talk about women's civic health, and once again, I do want to thank the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this panel. It is a privilege to be able to be here with some extraordinary women here on the stage, and as indicated, I not only head my own consulting firm, but have had the privilege of working with all of these women in different capacities, not only from my days, I'm aging myself, from my days working on the Hill as a staffer and counsel to working for this woman over here at the Lawyers Committee, for working with this woman over here with the Leadership Conference, working with Selena in different capacities when I was in philanthropy, also as Deputy Assistant Secretary under Obama. And so there's a lot of different experiences that I've had, and a lot of it has actually been based within the civic engagement and voting rights sector. I was part of the creation of election protection and also in kind of the evolution of that. And so really excited to be able to talk a bit more about civic health and what that really means, and particularly from a woman's perspective who have always been the forebears and grounding actually what is necessary within this space. So, as I said, women have traditionally been kind of the backbone of civic health, and for generations we've really seen this in different capacities. You can talk about women within not only achieving the right to vote, particularly Black women being the ones that have been behind the scenes really pushing. We have 3 Black women here that also represent kind of that 92% that has been really a part of ensuring that there has been leadership in moving forward an agenda in which we are making sure that women are represented and understanding what is necessary for our society to move forward. Women in particular have been the backbone of ensuring that other people come to the table, regardless of what party you've been a part of. Looking at the Women's March, who came together? That was women who coming together to ensure that our rights were being listened to and foregrounded in whatever movement and discussion was going to be moving forward. They said Black women in particular have been pillars within this democracy and have been particularly leading the charge in different ways. I've talked about how 92% of women, Black women in particular, were the ones that were ensuring that were showing up at the ballot box. They're the ones who actually were talking to their family members, talking to their sons, talking to their husbands, talking to relatives, talking to those that are disaffected, They were the ones that were out there in the field making sure that people are coming to the table. Yet, right now, particularly, women are under attack. We've seen over 300,000 Black women who have lost jobs as a result of this administration and as a result of the various cuts that have been put in place. That means you've had a spike when women have traditionally been on the bottom rungs for the unemployment rates, but we've really seen a spike from like 5% to now almost 7% Black women unemployment within just a few months. That's what we're talking about now. And because women have been so instrumental, that's oftentimes why women are attacked. Because there is this understanding of the power that exists within the ability for women not only to multitask, but to actually lead the way. And so we're here today with 3 dynamic women, and we want to foreground, talk about this in terms of, their leadership and how it is that they're serving as CEOs and organizers within their respective organizations, how they've really been the driving force in the conversations that we've been seeing today. And so during this conversation, we're going to talk to each women leader up here about how to advance leadership and kind of ensure that our voices are remaining central within our civic progress. And so, for timing purposes, I'm going to forego the extensive bios of each one here, but I am going to name names, and I'm going to give a little personal, statement, of course. So I'm going to start with Barbara over here, and see, I know they're just, it's Barbara, it's Maya, it's Selena, it's Beyonce, it's, Selena. I mean, this is who we're talking about here. That's who we've got up here on this stage. And so Barbara, otherwise known as Barbara Arnwine, who is the president and CEO of Transformative Justice Coalition, but also president emeritus of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, from which I know her tenure and actually go back farther than that. And so she has been really at the forefront of leading the charge and ensuring that people recognize what is necessary in order for us to be engaged within the voting rights perspective, within civic engagement, and just seeing what's coming up in the future and making sure that people are paying attention. So I'm really excited to have Barbara here today. She has been a mentor for me, and then I'm going to stop because, like I said, I wasn't going to go through our bio. So we've got Barbara. Over to my right, we've got Maya, otherwise known as Maya Wiley, who is the president, CEO of the Leadership Conference for Civil and Human Rights. Once again, someone who has been a strong leader, someone who is out there engaging, not worried about who is going to attack whomever. She's the one who is saying, we have to come together as a coalition. She has been the one out there speaking truth to power and making sure that people recognize that we are better together as a coalition, and recognizing our power, and that we have to ensure that our strength is understood, and ensure that even in these dire times, that we are the ones that can make that change, and that's what we have to do. So there's Maya. And
Your dance partner.
My dance
partner.
That's
where I thought you were going.
I'm sorry. She is my dance partner. She's the one who will get out there with me and doing, whatever it is that we need to do in order to let loose a little bit. My dance partner. Thank you so much. And then we have to the right, Selena. Selena, who is the president of the League of Women Voters, someone who has been also grounded in the work, so much so that we all know who she is. But we also recognize that she has been the organizer, somebody who has been making sure that she is speaking about the importance of women being in the field and understanding the aggressive nature by which we're being attacked, and not allowing that to be a detriment to push, making sure that we're pushing back and understanding that the League of Women Voters has to be out there in the forefront, leading that charge and making sure that they're in all different corners and pockets of the country. Selena is someone who I am proud to be able to call a friend, and someone who I'm really excited about, who has taken that reign over the League of Women Voters and taken them and even moving them forward. So we have Selena. And so, haven't gotten on the dance floor with her yet, but we're working on that. Yeah, there's still time. And so with that, I want to leave you with this, because again, these are powerful women. And we're going to talk about how to move forward. And so one thing that I always say, and one of my favorite quotes, is that in order to move forward, I always have to get to where I'm going by leaving where I've been. Despite whatever is happening, you got to move forward by leaving where you've been. Winnie the Pooh. I mean, he is somebody who really knows what that, understanding what that meaning is. So one of my favorite quotes, but that is when these powerful women are going to talk about where we got to go from here. So with that, I'm going to start with, let's actually start with you, Selena. I'm not going to bring, because I understand sometimes, it's always easy to go, from right to, anyway, I'm going to go over here first. Yes, I'm going to go over here. We're going to start with that. All right, so I'd like to ask, again, because I know that we're talking about women's civic health, but again, we also have three powerful Black women up here that have been grounded, and I've talked about the importance of leading the charge and what it really means. And so, because Black women have really been pivotal and have played a vital role in civic life and the electoral process, but it's really also taken a toll physically and mentally. I think we have to recognize that. And so, what investments do you think can be made to improve civic health, particularly of Black women, and that will turn and grow the overall civic participation and engagement?
So I will say that there's a few things, but what I want to say, I'm certainly a Black woman. My membership doesn't look quite, some of them do. Not all of them look like me. But I think one of the things, when you're in a space of overwhelm, which is what I think we're in right now with so much news coming at us, with so many attacks coming at us, for me, it's really important to leverage this brand because we are grassroots. We have more than 700 local leagues around the country. We're in every congressional district, and we're in all 50 states plus DC. So when I think about civic life and civic activism as a grassroots organization, we have to be out there. And particularly for white women, it's important for us to be clear about what it means for you to have privilege, what it means to use your privilege effectively. Because the civil rights movement and all the movements that have come before, it required effective allyship. And everyone can say, hey, I'm with you, but are you gonna show up when the chips are down, when the fire is blazing? And so thinking about how we show up in moments like that is so important. So to me, strengthening that muscle of showing up, and I tell this story, I started telling the story mostly because my comms lady told me I should, but because it was private to me. But during the George Floyd protests, I had friends, we were all out there with our signs protesting. And it was 4 of us, and we had our signs, we were marching, and this was the first time I had seen military presence in the street in DC. There were actual tanks, but the temperature was different because the people who were military personnel didn't feel like a threat against protesters. They were actually just there, right? But what I remember is that there were these 4 white gentlemen who pushed past us to get in front of us. And I was just like, hey, boo. All just trying to march peacefully, right? But what one of the men said to me is, we're getting in front of you because they will not shoot us. And in that moment, I was completely disarmed from my rage, wanting to be upset, right?
Yeah.
Because I was just like, not only do you understand that you have privilege, but you are using it in a way that's effective.
Yes.
And so now being in this position, I'm like, how do we do that? How do I, having that experience, being wrapped with that experience, teach the people who are a part of our membership how to do that same thing every day? So I think those are the things that help improve civic life, that teaching, showing up when the chips are down, but being committed to doing that as often as possible.
Thank you so much. Maya?
I don't want to follow that.
You want to follow Barbara?
I'm sorry.
I don't know that I want to follow Barbara.
No, you're not.
And I mean that. Like, these are all brilliant, amazing sister leaders. And I want to say, starting from the perspective of the tremendous privilege of being the first Black woman to be president and CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, which is a Black legacy organization. 75 years old, and I am the first Black woman.
That's true.
So that's something, no, thank you.
No,
and
that's
I don't
very
say that
important.
about me per se. I am saying that because we are in a time when increasingly Black women are becoming leaders, formal leaders, I say formal,
Yeah.
because black women have always been leaders. Always, always. And they weren't just cooking chicken dinners, okay? But I say that because at the same time, that's a trend. And not only for a black legacy, and the coalition itself looks like America, we are very diverse, but we are a black legacy civil rights coalition. But that's happening, so Selena represents something that is happening across not-for-profits, local, state, national, that aren't legacy black organizations. Why do I say this? I say this, one, because of how grateful I am that Selena's in her position and what a difference that makes in the kind of conversations. And League of Women Voters is a member of the organization of the Leadership Conference, is on the board of RC4, and having other women like Becky Pringle at NEA, National Education Association. I don't know any black woman who leads anything that isn't under attack right now.
Yeah.
Attack as a not-for-profit leader, attack by being added. We have teachers who are leading her being added to doxing lists on social media.
Yes.
Because they are voicing issues about Charlie Kirk's racism, not to deny that no one should be killed for their viewpoints, even if their viewpoints should be shunned and shamed, but refusing to be silent about the fact that it should be shunned and shamed. And in fact had made explicitly racist comments about black women and black men, black people, but also explicitly about black women's brain power. Michelle Obama, Ketanji Brown Jackson, on and on. But I'm saying that because even the very act for black women of either having the temerity to think that they should vote, or that they should organize other voters, or the temerity to think they're deserving of a position in government, even at its highest levels like Governor Cook, who is being lied about right now around mortgages simply because she's insisting on doing her neutral job of making decisions on tariffs. First black woman in that position. Or even just basically speaking out on social media as someone who is not known to the public but is using that platform to share their voice is now an act of tremendous courage.
Yeah.
And I say this because very intentionally, the powers of government are being weaponized, not new, but the extent, Tanya already shared a lot of how that's happening. I know Barbara will also share more. But the reason I'm saying this is because Selena's point about allyship requires coalition. But it also requires the ability to understand that you have to encircle black women who are showing up wherever they're showing up in the way that they're showing up. Because if you look at, let's just look at, because League of Women Voters has a badass campaign, right? The 8.5 million campaign.
United Rise 8.5.
Well, on the theory that if you get, is it 3.5% of the population active civically and in voting, that's when we stop tyranny. That is the tipping point. If you look at black women and voter participation, we're already way over that number.
Right.
We're way over that number in terms of our civic engagement. I mean, we're way. We're like in the 45, 50% number, right? Already. That means that if we are not protected, the effort to get to the whole 3.5 isn't, because getting our numbers up is not the problem.
Yeah.
The suppression of our numbers is the problem. And that means that as we watch others now becoming afraid, and we know the intent is to make fear a pandemic. And the only vaccine is that we demonstrate that courage is not the absence of fear.
Yes.
Because we are afraid.
That's a word, girl.
And we're fighting. We are fighting. We are fighting anyway. And it's lives, it's livelihoods, it's reputation, it's everything on the line. So if we are not stopping and we want a vaccine to fear, it is because we are protected and being courageous, and nobody can be afraid to stand beside us, in front of us, behind us, and protect us.
All right, Mike.
Amen.
All right. All right now. All right. All right now.
Barbara.
Hi. Good morning, everyone. Today is National Voter Registration Day. So, all over the country, we're getting ready. So thank you for everyone who's involved in that. I also just want to say a big thank you to everyone who showed up on July 17th for John Lewis Good Trouble Lives On.
Yeah.
We were, as Transformative Justice Coalition, very involved in that organizing. Can't wait for October the 18th for No Kings 2, getting, ready. So listen, when I look at the dilemma we're in right now, I have to do two things to center myself. One is to remember the history through which we've come. Think about it. Most of us never learned a word about the racial fascism that has dominated our history as a nation. That means that even though I was born and raised in California, I never knew about the 1930 Mexican repatriation, where over 2 million Mexican Americans were thrown out of the United States. Because of what? Because of the same reality that we're facing now of not enough jobs. When capitalism fails, racism rises up, and racial fascism rises up. So understanding the McCarthy era, understanding, all of that puts it into perspective, just makes it, understandable what we're fighting and how this is a reflexive reality of this nation, and how bad these battles can be. But at the same time, it's not just about the historical understanding and the understanding of the present moment, but it's about the vision that we have about the future. Because if we're not speaking vision into this moment, as they say, speak life into, speak encouragement into a moment, if we're not speaking our vision, then people don't know what to fight for. And when we talk about fighting for it, it's got to be vision-based. So you have to, so I just think it's so critical for women, because remember, we say women, but there are MAGA women, powerful MAGA women at this point. They might be stooges, whatever, but that Kristi Noem and Pam Bundy stuff is ugly and dangerous right now. So we got to understand how women, how their womanhood is being weaponized against other women and against our democracy. So when we fight, when we talk about vision, we have to be able to say clearly that we believe, in an inclusive, unfettered, just, and robust, multiracial democracy. We have to be able to say that and mean it, and understand what that means about every level of our fight to get there. So vision, layering vision, and understanding, how you deal with the conservative, far-right, reactionary narrative dynamic in our society, but the progressive dynamic in our society, the multiracial dynamic in our society. That is what has given our society its best moments, has been when we have achieved true multiracialism, when we have really been able to say, I'm fighting for women, but that means all women. I'm fighting for blacks, but that means all people of color. I'm fighting for the aged. I'm fighting for those with disabilities. I mean, when we are able to stand in that space with our multidimensional, multitasking realities as women, when we can stand there, that's when this country is the most beautiful. Thank you.
So each of you has touched on different aspects that I have questions about, so I'm not going to merge everything. So what I definitely want to get into this aspect. Obviously, and Maya mentioned this, we're all under attack. Freedom of speech,
Yeah.
saying the truth,
Freedom to read.
Yeah.
brings you under attack.
What to read.
Yeah, I mean, book bans, everything. There's the erasure of history and truth-telling that is under attack. Why? So that we don't understand, actually, the historical basis of fascism.
Right.
That's the reality.
Precisely.
So people don't understand exactly how it is that you lose a democracy. So with that, there does have to be the vision that you mentioned.
Yeah.
But how do we, in these times right now, it's very difficult for people, particularly those who maybe don't understand the history and haven't been taught that, have not been familiarized with what has happened not only in this country, but actually abroad.
Yeah.
Like how, and I say this oftentimes, the Holocaust didn't just happen. It happened because people allowed it to happen.
Right.
Because it wasn't at their door until it was.
That's right.
And then it was too late. And so the danger is just standing by and doing nothing.
Right.
Because it's not at your doorstep. So that means we have to have trusted figures. And so I'm looking at each one of you, and I'd love to understand, what do you see? Like, how would you speak to others about how to move forward in this unprecedented time and who to trust? Women have often been those bearers of trust. And I'd like to understand more about how it is you see that in the work that each of you are doing. So now I'm going to go back over here. You just spoke, and I'm going to start with you, Barbara. I'm going to come back around. But I'd like to learn more about how to really take advantage of that the ability, particularly that women have, in order to exist in this society, particularly in an intersectional way, because we have so many things that are confronting us. But how do you utilize that in order to build trust and help people to move forward?
Building trust has to be based on your actions. People don't want to just hear what you got to say. They want to know that you're going to do what you say you're going to do, and that you're going to do it in a way that encompasses them, that embraces their realities. I am in that, TJC, leadership conference has the whole nation. League of Women Voters is in every state. TJC, we're in 29 states. And, with 280 partners, most of them grassroots, local groups. And when you walk into a new community and you're asking people to put their lives on the line in some ways, when you ask them to vote, where the voter suppression is so severe and so ugly, people got to trust you. They got to trust that what you're saying is necessary, is true. They got to trust that the tactics that you're urging them to engage in are tactics that you've spoken and talked to the local community, and you're all in agreement that this is what is necessary in this moment. And that it's protective, that you thought about their lives, you thought about their protection, you thought about what happens after the fact. There's way too much organizing in our country that's parachuting in, parachuting out, and leaves nothing, none of that essential democratic infrastructure that has to be there at the local level. So I just think that, for me, I'm able to function because people know my history. They know I've been out there, as a 75-year-old woman.
All right.
They know I'm serious now.
Right now.
They know that I'm serious, right? Right? Okay? They know that that's not just, some, I want to be famous stuff. Heck, at some point, you are what you are, and you got that comfortableness in age. So, I just think that it's so important. So what has made my organization, this is our 10th anniversary, what has made it successful has been that trust. But that trust was built because I worked in the trenches all those years. People saw me fighting, in the Capitol Hill, fighting with Ted Kennedy when he was alive, fighting with, all these various figures, hanging out with, Maxine Waters, all of that. They saw the fight. And they knew that it was genuine because it wasn't driven by money. It wasn't driven by fame. It was driven by the fact that some of us have within us, buried deep inside of us, a burning desire for justice. We don't rest. We don't sleep. It is what we fight for. It is our nature. It's what we do in the morning. When I get up in the morning, I look in that darn mirror and I say, I am a voting rights champion. That's who I am. That's what I'm going to do today. That's what I'm going to be. And so people know that. So part of it is our own, reputations, our own work. But it does take a lot to get to that level of understanding. I was on a call last night of Move On. Move On had a major call last night, a movement organizing call for October the 18th for many other things. And during the call, they had a gentleman talking about the organizing he did in Hampton Roads. And he said at the very end of his, talking about how to organize, he says, well, one of the best partners I had was the NAACP. And the moderator said, oh, how unusual. And I said to myself, no, no. That's the starting point. Yeah. Multiracial organizing. That's where you get the trust. Multiracial organizing is just so key. It's fundamental. It's not an add-on. It's not I'm doing something for those people. It's about we are fighting together. That's so essential to trust.
Thank you, Barbara. All right. All right. Now you're following Barbara. Yeah, you are.
Why did I? Okay. Well, to be in the amen corner to all that Barbara said, and to be in an incredibly privileged position of being a part of a very big tent coalition, yes. Which means nobody agrees with anybody.
It's hard. Right. It's hard.
That's what that means. I mean, no, there's a lot of agreement. Like, everybody agrees on voting rights. Let me say that. But there are details in voting rights that people right?
Maya's out here telling all of our business.
Yes, she will. We all know.
All right, it's okay. I'll get my fees later. No, but I say that because I think, to Barbara's point, you can only be successful with trust no matter what you do.
Yes.
And two of the ingredients in trust, just to kind of lift them up, is showing up and showing up authentically. Mm-hmm. That's my no bullshit speak. I'm saying, which means when there's disagreement, mm-hmm. The problem isn't whether you agree or not. That's right. It's whether you're showing up and being honest about the concerns and the reasons and who you're worried about, why. Mm-hmm. Because that's where the solutions are found in, but that's also where trust is built.
Right.
And sometimes that being authentic is its own act of courage. I've had people yell at me in my coalition because they didn't agree with what we would or would not do. And I understand totally and thoroughly. And my way of, and I say this because I've learned this from excellent leaders. It's something that I have come to value is whether or not we're willing to also receive the disagreement and the feelings that come from it, which is hard. But the principled part of it matters a lot, and that's the authentic part. Because hopefully, I don't know people who are in the work inauthentically. The question is whether naming the principles, naming the reasons, and also naming the role. I think Barbara, part of our role is not the folks on the ground per se. I mean, we connect for sure, but we're not the ones knocking the doors. We're not, I mean, that's not our role. Our role is about bringing together the groups to figure out the gaps, to figure out the disagreements, to work through them, to figure out how we're a force multiplier even when we don't agree on everything, right? Mita Anand, who's sitting here, who does our same census and data equity work, you know, has been in the trenches doing this as well. But this is, I think this is understanding the role as well. And when it's okay to disagree and agree to disagree and figure out how you stay in relationship. But I also want to say this, if we are not supporting others' ability to be their own leaders, then we're failing.
That's the issue.
Then we're
That's
failing.
the issue.
That's the issue.
Yes.
And so the question isn't whether or not, I don't think of it as whether or not I am trusted per se. I think about it as whether or not we are able to be in relationship and that other people feel more powerful, not because of us, but at least because we're able to support and encourage where they can see that they have been powerful or that, and they have more that they can do. And that is exactly the role of a coalitional platform. And it requires the ability to recognize that as the impact, and that is the principle, and that is the way you show up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I want to continue this theme of trust, but then I want to add a second point. So anyone who works in movement, or let's just talk about relationships. Relationships move at the speed of trust. Movement, coalition moves at the speed of trust. So this is 100% true. You have to build trust, and it's a variety of ways that you do that, whether that's having the tough conversations. At the League, we have this model, because I believe in unequivocal solidarity. At a moment like this, fracturing is not an option. And so whether we have the tough conversations and then we either agree and commit or disagree and commit. We ain't got to agree. Most of the time, I don't even like some of the people. But it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. Because whether I like you, whether I agree with how you want to move or how your strategy, nothing gets in the way of liberation to me, period. I will always put liberation and movement above all other things, personally and otherwise. So I think that trust piece is so critical. In terms of how we show up and moving forward, like all the things I see happening, whether it's on social media around Charlie Kirk's death or just the vitriol I see towards Black people, the desire to erase Black history, the desire to erase jobs, the ability to target or the desire to target the trans community, the LGBTQIA community at large, all of these things, what I see is a lot of people who are hurting in this country.
Right.
This is a pain point. And even when I think about young people, and I think about the 2024 election in particular, how some people, 90 million people sat out.
They did.
If even a quarter of those people showed up, our country would be different. But they didn't, and there was a reason. Everyone had a reason for that. And so when I think about this moment and how we show up now, we have to be able to speak power to the pain points. And what I mean by that is, when I talk to young people, especially at colleges, we did like an election tour before the 2024 election. What I heard was, my vote doesn't matter. And I was like, you in Arizona? What you mean? In Pennsylvania, what do you mean? Do you know what this whole thing, swing states, purple states mean? Like that, you're like in one of these states that matter. But young people, they didn't have any concept of that. And I said, so tell me what your pain point is. And when I asked what their pain point was, they said, well, you know, you all are worried about politics. I can't even afford to live independently.
That's right.
Or I can't afford, I have to have 5 roommates. And quite frankly, I don't want to do that at 22, right? And so what my listening first and saying, what is your pain point? But then, do you know who makes decisions in your state about the cost of living, about the price of rent, about the mortgage rates? Do you know that the federal has its own thing, but there are people in your state who make those decisions? And you need to know that because that is your power. Voting for the people who align with what you want and who are going to make housing more affordable. And the other piece that I heard was, I don't trust judges. Someone in my family just got caught up with this, that, and the third, a bad marriage, child support, whatever the case may be. And I'm like, well, do you know that some judges are elected? You need to know that. You need to know that when you are filling out your ballot, you may have the power to elect a judge who aligns with rehabilitation and understands that there is a disparity with Black men in particular being locked up. You have the power to make a choice. And so I feel like by speaking power to pain points, we cut through the noise of just politics, because this is more than just showing up for an election. This is about who are we electing who actually make our lives easier. And so as a grassroots organization, we do a lot of that work. We have vote411.org, which is a voter services tool. And I came to the league based on Vote for 111 because I was trying to fill out my ballot, and I was just like, who are all these damn people?
Right.
Who are all these damn people? Yeah. But it had information about what this person believed in, their record, what they valued, and so it was easier for me to say, okay, I like this person over that person. And you can even compare candidates. And so the app has gotten so advanced now that you pick your candidates and you can save it on your phone. So when you go into the ballot box or when you have your ballot at home, you're just like, let me just get this done. It takes the time out of it, even though you got to do. Voting takes work. Let's not just embrace it. But I think that those two things, one, trust, how do you build trust individually with your family to get those folks to vote, to make sure that those people show up to the things that we have to show up, and even to have the tough conversations that we don't want to have at Thanksgiving. You know what, Thanksgiving is coming up. We're about to have that whole thing again. But the second thing is, how do we speak power to the pain points so that we can engage more people?
Appreciate that. Thank you so
Pain
much.
is important.
So, as a respectable moderator, I have to look at time, and I recognize that we're getting low on time. So I want to give an opportunity for a few questions. I can take a few questions from the audience, and then I want to allow our panelists to kind of wrap things up. And so if anyone has any questions, we're willing to take that right now. Let's see. Okay, I see a woman. Okay, I see in the back. And so I'm going to go to back here first, and I'll come back up to you.
Hi, I just want to say first, thank you all so much for being here today, and thank you all so much for the work that you guys are doing. It's definitely just inspiring. My question is kind of more, like, I guess, an idealistic question in a way, in that we've been seeing the rise of, frankly, like, right-wing women who are politically involved, arguably since people like Thatcher, and we're seeing that very much so today, not only in the States, but when you look at places like Italy with their prime minister, but that's also juxtaposition by the president of places like Mexico, right, where we're seeing women, empowered women involved, and women changing societies for the better. I was wondering could you tell me what you guys envision for the modern woman, what you envision for the movement of feminism, and how you see this progression over the next decade or so? Okay,
can we give it up for that question?
I know!
That is spectacular. I'm now feeling much better about, I have young sons and the next generation. So yeah, I'm going through it, y'all. Just go with it. But thank you so much. That is a wonderful question. Who wants to start with that response?
Go, Maya.
Well, let me say that gender doesn't have an ideology. Nancy Mace. And so we have actually, as we're watching an ideology of extremism, particularly white ethno-nationalist Christianity, it therefore has its women who are parts of it. Even as we know, we have a lot of women who are not. Even as we know, we have men who are not. And so I think one of the things that we have to understand is happening both in this country and abroad is a pitched battle around whether or not we believe in diversity, in equity, in inclusion, and democratic practice that undergird them and that they support. And that's happening across the globe. I will share with you that I was at an event last night with a man who was a Russian exile. exile from Putin's Russia, was an author. And he and I started this conversation saying, well, are you going to leave this country next? What's your red line? He said, we've crossed it.
Oh, wow.
I agree with him. We've crossed that red line. But I'm saying that because when we think of a vision, I'm thinking of the vision of what we all want for ourselves, our families, our communities, and our country, which is one in which everyone can live to their full capacity, decent lives, and be welcomed and included, and have a voice. I think it's not that hard to know what the North Star is. It is very obvious that it's deeply under attack and that we've already crossed a bunch of red lines. And in an era when we can have overt racism, overt sexism, overt religious-based hate, overt calls to violence, and it has permission from elected officials, we have crossed that red line. And it doesn't, it's not, and I say this because that for me is, I can tell you what the gender lens is for me as a black woman, but my point is, whatever, at its root, it is fundamentally about whether we all belong. And black women are not a single identity.
That's right.
And if we live in the principle and we live in the North Star, we can be our own. I will tell anybody who will ask me, I'm black, I'm a woman, I'm old, and I'm cranky. All those things are part of my identity. I say that not because your question is really important, but that in this time, holding on to it is about everyone, which means by definition, it's also about us, and that we're allowed to proclaim that, whatever all those various us's are, that are about diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, and fundamental voice. Then we've got a path together.
I would thank you, Maya, because it's so important for us to think about that. You know, I purposefully raised my son to be an internationalist, for him to understand that the U.S. is not the norm, that you got to look at the world to understand what norms are. And because of that, you know, I drugged the poor child to Geneva for, you know, for the meetings of the, you know, Human Rights Commission. So he got to hear what other nations look like when it comes to women's equality. Mm-hmm. He got to hear that early and see it and realize how behind and backwards the U.S. is. And not to think that it's so forward, that he got to see women of power, women of stature, who were governing their nations early. So his expectation of what's equal and right for women is so different than the people who he knows who haven't had that kind of, they think the U.S. is norming. They think it's normal that as is a woman capable of leading a great nation. When you got all these women leaders who have done so and are doing so. You know, so I think part of it is it's an educational challenge for us to, you know, make sure that people understand what the options are in life and what the options are for equality, because it's so easy to get confused. So when we do one thing that TJC does is we train at least 100 young people to be voting rights advocates every year. We've trained over 800 people to this date. And sitting next to me is one of the trainers. And they just love them some Tanya. They can't get enough of Tanya. It's like, okay, you guys, you've had her for an hour and a half, but we want more. But she's so good. But what is so beautiful about the training is that they come out, you know, armed, knowledgeable. We talk about women. We talk about white women, black women, misogynoir. We talk about all of these realities. And we also, and we talk about, centering women's leadership. We talk about all that stuff. But we also talk about, human dignity and what we all want for, humanity. So I just think it's so important to address these issues with a big lens, with a wide lens, because we don't have CEDAW, right, in this country, which is the, convention, the International Convention on Women's Rights. Yeah. Because we don't have it, we don't understand what other women in other Western, quote, style democracies, and even in Africa, in Asia, we don't understand what the difference of expectation between our country and theirs. So it's just so important for us I would just argue to everybody here to please, develop and work on and actually actualize that international perspective.
So I'm going to keep my response short and unpopular. I'm just warning y'all. We're going to have to let some of them go, baby. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Not everyone is going to be in the movement. Not everyone is going to come with us. We just need enough people to save the world. Mm-hmm.
3.5.
Yeah, and it has always been a small percentage of people who have saved our world globally, not just in America, but globally. What's required in this moment, we have to be okay with not everybody getting on the boat. Think of it as Noah's Ark. We're going to take 2 of each, as many as we can. But the other thing I'm just going to say quickly is, for a lot of people in America and globally, equality feels like oppression. Mm-hmm. And we can't change that, because some people just are going to feel that way, where anything that is equality is going to feel like personal oppression, because they're not used to everybody having a piece.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But that cannot stop us from the push forward that all of us or none of us. And I just hope that there's enough of us that says all of us or none of us to move this country and to move globally forward against authoritarianism.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so what I'm going to do in order to be respectful of time, well, I saw a question up here, so I'd like to take both questions at the same time, and then I'm going to have people maybe not respond to, just do a response, and then we're going to kind of wrap up. So, okay?
Great, thank you, good morning. I'll make it quick, and I wrote it in advance, because I don't want to cry.
Aww.
How can Black women leaders in the democracy ecosystem best protect their personal, physical safety while doing this important work in public places, especially as the 2026 primaries and the following general election approach?
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Number one. And the other question, was it in the back? Or was that it? Oh, was that it? Oh,
Right there.
okay.
There she is.
All right.
No, that's real.
This might partner well with the previous question. I'm also wondering, when it comes to our upcoming elections, how organizations can provide some election protection around these events where we can anticipate perhaps a military presence
Perhaps.
for the first time.
Yeah.
I think we're already there.
Yeah. So just thinking worst case scenario, and I think that partners well with the previous question. How do we provide the safety necessary at those places so people feel welcome?
All right, so we're going to answer both of those questions together, and then and I would like for you in doing so to kind of then also give me your short but impactful statement of how it is that a woman leader can help continue to move us forward, all right, in your particular position. What I do want to say, one thing in response to your question, I appreciate it. I actually was on a call yesterday speaking to some of that, listening to some of that, which has led to some work that I'm going to be doing to help organize an urgent call this Friday. So I'm going to make a point to make sure that something you know about this.
Okay.
I know the Leadership Conference has been leading and working through other coalitions, Democracy 2025, in order to help speak specifically, though, to racial justice organizations, those that are dealing with race in particular, not just progressive organizations, and the special circumstances that we're dealing with in terms of our physical security and mental health. Because being doxxed is no little thing.
Right.
And being swatted is no little thing.
Not at all.
And that's something that we do need to be concerned about. So I appreciate your question because it is very time sensitive and it's something that we all need to be particularly concerned about. So I'm going to let Selena close it as you have helped bring this panel together. I'm actually going to start out with you, Maya, and then come around to Barbara.
Those two questions are so interconnected that I'm going to try to be very brief. Together. That's my very high-level, short, brief answer. First of all, we've never been safe.
Right.
It's a hard truth, but it is the truth. And the way in which we have been able to achieve all we have, and the reason they've had to come for all our achievement is because we've remained together. So finding the people, not being alone, and then the same at the institutional level. So that's true at the individual and community level. It's also true at the institutional level. So part of it being in a coalition and part of what we're doing now on that protection question that really crosses both these questions is who's where, what can they do, where do we make sure we have an information tree so that we know when somebody needs help or when something's going to happen and we need to be encircling that we are. That is happening now. And so the more in which you also have the ability to be connected to institutions, we are also connected to one another. And that is how we're identifying where the gaps are, where they need to be filled so that people are getting the information on how to be safe, how they can maximize it, but also who can jump in when they need it. You know, which organizations, which entities, and who can be called. So that's what we're all doing collectively and separately. So just know that. And then just know to ask. I think a lot of times we as women don't ask for help because we're so used to being the help. It's our time to ask.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you.
Amen. Amen. You know, to your question, the minute Charlie Kirk was shot and I saw the right-wing reaction to start hating on black people, which made zero sense, but the minute I saw it, the first instinct was I picked up the phone and started calling my buddies, saying, are you safe? Are you aware of what's just happened? And, you know, what's your security arrangements right now? Those were the first things, I mean, literally. And in fact, I couldn't reach one, so I called that person's security person and said, are you aware this just happened? And they weren't. And I said, you got to get up with your principal right now. Find them, because I can't, but you find them. You know how to do it, and make sure they're safe. And the principal called me later on that night and said, thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, we have to understand the danger of the moment that we live in, but the way we get through it, because, you know, you can't just stay boarded up in your house because, hey, we know the Moors were killed in their house, right? You know, we're firebombed in Florida. That's a horrible story, you know, major civil rights leaders. So we know that the house is in a sanctuary, that the sanctuary is everything we do to be safe. Everything that we do to surround ourselves with safety, and to also, you know, and to just be smart. I mean, you saw, you know, AOC canceled her outdoor appearance. That was a smart move. I don't care what anybody says. It was a very smart move. So you have to, you know, just. But the other thing I found, I just was at the congressional Progressive Caucus's new PAC meeting. This last weekend, we weren't able to, while the meeting was happening, to even say we were at a meeting. And indeed, I made the mistake of walking out on the street, and I had on my lanyard, and had forgotten to take it off, and a gentleman came up to me and said, "Where are you guys meeting?" And I had to deflect that whole question and he said, "I've seen a lot of people walking with those. Where are you guys meeting?" I had to deflect the question, and I took that bad boy off and put it away. You know, there's a lot of reality, but one of the best things that happened to me during that meeting was a friend of mine pulled together a safe space, and she didn't call it that, but she pulled together all these brilliant, beautiful women. It was all women, and we all sat down, and by the time we finished that dinner, woo, we were so energized. It was unbelievable. And the beauty of thinking about what spaces we control, how we use them to build each other up and not down, but to build each other up, it was beautiful. I mean, that will go on for a long time, all those connections that came out of that. So it's just, that's the kind of loving that we have to do on each other as we protect each other.
Thank you, Barbara.
And I'll echoing what both Barbara and Maya said, I think community is so important right now. The network that Maya mentioned, that doesn't stop us from doing that in our local communities.
Yes.
Like I have a calling tree with my family in case, you just don't know who might get swept up doing whatever. I would say build your network. Even locally, there's a group of women who we have a Facebook group, and we also have more private groups. But if something happens, the grid goes down, we have a watering hole place. Where are we meeting up?
You got it.
Within an hour of things happening. Yep. Because we may not have the resources to use our phones, but that type of planning I think is really important. At the organizational level, we have a security firm now that supports us in monitoring threats, monitoring things that come in. You would only imagine all the things that come to the office, that come to our state league offices, et cetera. But being very thoughtful about preparing the troops, so to speak. Like, how do we protect ourselves when we're having forums? How do we protect ourselves when we're having meetings? Don't have it in your home, because that may bring attention to your home that you don't want. So just being thoughtful about providing guidance about how we protect ourselves, but also locally, how do we create those spheres of support so that if something happens, we know where to go, who to call, and who we're leaning on.
Well, I just want to say thank you to each one of you for being who you are at this moment and for meeting the moment. It has been a pleasure to be up here with you. Please give them a round of applause.
Thank you.
And our moderator, Tanya.
Thanks to you.
And I feel better knowing that each of you are in the positions that you are right now, because we all need to be together and to support one another in order to get through this moment. So thank you. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.